So class, yesterday we talked about how cells are the most basic unit of life, the smallest unit of life. Well, what exactly are cells? Cells are tiny little organisms combined to make up everything that lives. They're the basic building blocks of all life. They were discovered by a guy named Robert Hooke in the 1600s. Before then, we didn't even know what cells were. All cells have a purpose. If they don't do anything productive, they're simply not needed anymore. In the big picture, a cell's purpose is much more important than acting as small organizational pieces. They had their purpose long before they started working together in groups and building more advanced organisms. Way before living beings, as advanced as humans and animals existed, there were simply a bunch of living individual cells. When those cells are alone, their main purpose is to survive. Even if you were a single cell, you would still have a purpose. It would be to survive. You would be moving around, probably in liquid, and just trying to stay alive. You would have all of your pieces inside of you also. If you were missing a piece you needed to survive, you would die. Just like if we were missing our heart or our brain, we would die. Scientists call those pieces organelles. Now, organelles are groups of complex molecules that help a cell survive. In the same way that cells survive in different ways, all cells have different types and amounts of organelles. The larger a cell becomes, the more organelles it will need. It makes sense if you think about it. If you're a big cell, you're going to need to eat a lot more than a little cell. Just like if you're a big person, you're going to need to eat a lot more than a little person. If you eat more, you're going to need bigger organelles to convert that into energy and bigger storage containers, like our stomachs, to hold those things. So cells can be very differently sized. Now, humans, animals, and many other organisms are multicellular organisms. What this means is we have more than one cell. If you're multicellular, you have more than one cell. Humans have a ton of cells. The human body is actually made up of 100 trillion cells. Whoa, 100 trillion. That's 1,000 billion times 100. The cells in our body, however, have adapted to living as part of a very, very complex organism. If we were to isolate one little brain cell, it simply would have a very hard time surviving on its own. That is because it has reacted to its surroundings, to its environment, and adapted to live in that very complex organism. Now, the last thing we're going to discuss today is the level of organization in a multicellular organism. Now, we talked about how cells are the smallest and most basic unit of life, but cells combine and they form much bigger things. We're now going to talk about 3 bigger things that come after cells in the level of organization. The first thing that's just a little bit bigger than cells are tissues. Now, tissues are groups of cells that are similar in structure. They perform a very, very similar job. Examples in our body could be blood tissues, bones, or even muscle tissues. Organs are what come after tissues. Now, organs are made up of tissues that work together to also perform one very specific function. Do we have organs in our bodies? Of course we do. Our heart, our lungs, even our brain, and our skin, those are all organs. What comes after organs are organ systems. Organ systems are groups of 2 or more organs that combine to perform one specific function. We have these too. Think about our respiratory system, which allows us to breathe. We need our lungs to breathe, obviously, but we also need muscles to help our lungs work and to help us get the oxygen that we need. Our lungs and those necessary muscles combine to make an organ system. Because cells are constantly adapting to their needs, they can be very different. Plant cells and animal cells, for example, can be very, very different, and they often are very different. Don't need to worry about this now, but just keep that in the back of your mind, as it's something we're going to talk a lot about this week throughout our whole biology unit.